must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
A very good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for joining us. This is Diaspora Dispatches, where we get to look at the news-making headlines across the continent of Africa. This afternoon, my name is Miriam Ogutu, and we do have a lot in store for you this afternoon. And we'll start with Nigeria, where officials in Niger State in north-central Nigeria have announced that they're going to arm vigilante groups with pump action rifles. They say they want to improve the local security in a state where attacks by bandits armed with AK-47 assault rifles have been on the rise. There are no police presence across much of the state, so it is hoped that the vigilantes will fill the gap, but there are concerns that it will lead to a growing violence. And then we go to Mauritius, where Mauritius entered into a 15-day national lockdown on Wednesday morning after a rise in new local COVID-19 cases since the beginning of the month. The Indian Ocean island nation recorded 5 new cases on Tuesday, bringing the total of new cases to 15. In what the authorities suspect will be a second wave, the worst affected regions in the towns of Bakoas, Phoenix, and Guru Pipe. And then we go to Burundi, and Burundi's Ministry of Commerce has banned maize, grain, and flour imports from the next 6 months, starting 8th of March. A statement from the ministry said recently imported maize was found to be not good and could affect people's health. It did not specify which countries the imports were from. The move comes after Kenya last week banned maize from Uganda and Tanzania over safety measures. Much of Burundi's maize imports are from Uganda and Zambia. It is not clear to what extent the country relies on imports to satisfy their needs. And then we turn our attention to Ethiopia, where the International Organization of Migration says there are more than 131,000 people displaced in 39 accessible locations in Ethiopia's Tigray region and neighboring Afar and Amhara. According to its survey, the data was gathered through a displacement tracking matrix. Its new survey, which gathers and analyzes data on population estimates, vulnerabilities, and the needs of displaced population. IOM said it had identified 30,383 displaced households. And then we go to Algeria, where now President of France, Emmanuel Macron of France, has relaxed the process of declassifying documents more than 50 years old, including those related to the Algerian War of Independence. For Wednesday, archivists can declassify documents that were kept secret on the grounds of national defense in batches. The change is expected to speed up access for researchers and is part of moves to promote reconciliation and detoxifying the legacy of France's colonial rule in Algeria. Earlier this month, Mr. Macron publicly acknowledged that Algerian independence figure Ali Boumediene had been tortured and assassinated by French forces. And then we go to Senegal, where a Senegalese opposition group has suspended plans for 3 days of huge protests called by opposition leader Ousmane Sonko. Mr. Sonko was freed from detention on Monday, but still faces rape charge, which he says is politically motivated. At least 8 people have died days of violent protests after days of a protest in Senegal, sparked by the arrest of Mr. Sonko on charges of public disorder. Mr. Sonko denies he is trying to overthrow President Macky Sall, who has called for calm. Mr. Sall has promised to shorten a curfew and provide extra funding for entrepreneurship. And then we go back to Nigeria, where a controversial Islamic cleric in Nigeria has classified his comments after the Nigerian army cautioned him about his utterances. Sheikh Ahmad Gumi reportedly said that the army was divided along religious lines. The Kaduna-based preacher, however, told the BBC Pidgin that the military did not understand his comments. The Islamic cleric, who is also a retired army major, has gained increased popularity in Nigeria after his recent discussions with a group of armed bandits affidavits troubling the northwest region of the country. The Nigerian army said in a statement that its soldiers were the pride of the nation and it will never allow religious leanings to influence its work. Now, if one of your former army officials is telling you that your army is divided along religious lines, perhaps you should pay attention. He was part of the army. He understands, Mr. Muhammadu Buhari. All right, let's go back to Ethiopia, where the Oromo Liberation Front, OLF, has become the second major political party in Ethiopia to denounce that it will not take part in the June election. The party said the jailing of some of the leaders and the alleged closing down of their offices by the government has disrupted the party operations and accused Mr. Abiy of narrowing the democratic space, a claim the Prime Minister's party has denied. The OLF's decision has caused a rift among top party officials. A faction led by Deputy Chairman So Bikili dismissed the announcement and vowed to take part in the poll. The OLF, a former rebel group, is one of the oldest parties in Ethiopia. It has huge following in Ethiopia's most populous Oromia region, where Mr. Abiy comes from. And then we come back to East Africa and we go to Uganda, where musician turned politician Robert Kyagulanyi, better known as Bobby Wine, called on Ugandans to take to the streets to protest January's election results and what he calls the oppressive government of President Yoweri Museveni. Wine started by highlighting human rights violations and election irregularities before, during, and after the January 14th vote. He said that this includes arrest and detention of NUP members, torture and brutality used against arrested Ugandans, and the refusal by the Supreme Court to accept 200 affidavits which Wine says contained critical evidence to prove election fraud against President Museveni. It is for these reasons that Wine called on Ugandans to come out and protest last week. President Museveni said he would consider the release of 50 suspects out of the 177 in detention. However, the NUP says 423 of their members are still missing and the only 89 are acknowledged by the government to be in custody. Okay, now we will have to talk about that in a minute, but let me finish with this news from South Sudan, where two senior members of the South Sudan Opposition Alliance says they do not seek positions but to work with the government in addressing past mistakes. Pagan Amum and Paul Malone classified their interest in negotiating with the government as required by the region and the international community. The international community has often demanded that the SOMA be part of the current revitalized peace agreement. Over the weekend, the government and the opposition alliance met in Naivasha here in Kenya to continue peace talks that were previously held in Rome, Italy. During the discussion, both sides reiterated their commitments to ending hostilities and advancing the peace process. Pagan Amum, who leads the real SPLM, told the conference that his intentions were to find lasting solutions to the underlying problems hindering political and economic stabilities in South Sudan. And we'll just get into that in just 1 minute. But can we look at the story from Uganda, where now opposition leader Bobby Wine is calling for protest? I don't know if he's in a suicide mission or what. Bobby Wine. All right, so we saw what happened there during the elections in Uganda. And I think a part of this story that really caught my attention is when last week President Museveni said that he would consider the release of about 50 suspects of the 177 in detention. The opposition, members, they were arbitrarily arrested after the election there in Uganda. However, the NUP says 423 of their members are still missing and only 89 are acknowledged by the government to be in its custody. So President Museveni is the one who is saying that he will consider the release of 50 suspects. I thought there is a separation of institutions there in Uganda. Why is it the mandate of President Museveni to decide on what will happen to the people that the police have, arrested? That should be left to the police. So President Museveni coming out and telling us he's thinking about, releasing, he might consider, under his prerogative, which is really not his job there. You would think the Ugandan police, this will be their work. But President Museveni there, of course, operating in impunity as usual, coming out and saying that he would consider the release of 50 suspects. Consider as who? I know you're the head of state of Uganda, but this is the work of the police is if the police arrested these people on whatever charges or the law they felt the opposition members had broken, I think it should be left up to the process of the law. The law should be left to take its course. So by President Museveni coming out and saying he might consider, this is just ridiculous. The level at which President Museveni runs the country of Uganda is just ridiculous. And yes, let's see if he'll agree to release. I don't know why he wants to release about 50 suspects. Why not all of them, President Museveni, now that you have the powers and you seem to be acting as the police of Uganda? Well, they work at your behest, but still, I think this is just quite interesting. And Robert Kyagulanyi, a.k.a. Bobi Wine, calling for a protest there in Uganda. I don't know how that will work out for him, because since he called out for this protest, there has been a beefed up security detail around him on the air. We've seen I've had reports of police choppers and helicopters just, flying around his house and around where he is to ensure that no such protest is able to take place there in Uganda. So I don't know how successful he will go with his wanting to have a protest there in Uganda. So he's saying the reasons as to why he wants this protest to take place, and he says he wants peaceful protest there. He highlighted the human rights violations and election irregularities before, during, and after the January 14th vote. As we all know that Bobi Wine had gone to court to challenge the win of President Museveni, and he wanted 3 of the judges who are listening to this case to recuse themselves because of the previous interactions they had had with President Museveni. And also, there's another part of his affidavit that he had brought in much later, I think after the time had elapsed, and the court refused to admit that. So he said those are the grounds by which he had to withdraw his case against President Museveni's win. And now he's saying, Ugandans, let's go out there and protest. Of course, peaceful protest in Uganda. Okay, I don't know how that will work out for him. Sophie Bonabana, you're asking when will it end? I wish I could have a proper answer for you. Unfortunately, I don't. I think when Ugandans get tired, maybe it will end. I don't know. But even as we speak, the reports indicate that President Museveni's son, who is an army general there, is being groomed to take over him. So you might have the Musevenis for a while there in Uganda. After Museveni retires, will he retire? I'm not sure. Maybe after he's dead, his son will take over the country, so you will still be at the mercy of General Museveni's family there in Uganda. So I don't know if these protests have taken place, if you know what's happening in Uganda. And I checked through Ugandan media, they're not announcing what is happening. I think they're scared. Their media houses might be closed down, or very punitive measures we've seen from the government when the media in Uganda, even broadcast things to do with the opposition. We saw it during the campaign. We've seen it from, remember that time, Bobi Wine, after he announced his interest of running for this year's election, I think about 2 or so years ago, and the government, they kind of forced. I don't know, he was speaking to some of his constituents or some of his supporters someplace, and there was a lot of tear gas, being thrown by the police, and a lot of chaos because the police wanted to arrest him for something he did, I don't know, about a couple of years back before then. So it was very chaotic. And for the media houses who dared to broadcast these live images, they were met by, I think, banning of their stations from operating for a couple of days until they were able to, kiss Museveni's string, and so they were back on air. I don't understand, but that is what happened there. So even the information that is coming from Uganda is very scanty. They're not really saying or talking much about this protest that the opposition has said, has called on for its supporters to go out there and protest in Uganda. So The number of people that have been abducted that the government cannot account for also is up there, and the opposition has their numbers and people. They're saying the government, the police, the security forces there have abducted in Uganda, and these people, nobody knows their whereabouts. Nobody knows their whereabouts, and as I've said here before, the police head of police there came out and said it's true. We did take a few of Ugandans in the middle of the night. We did take them, but unfortunately, we really don't know what happened to them, even though they were in our custody. So we only know, the whereabouts of a few of them. So you can imagine, operating like that. I can't even begin to tell you. Uganda is just living in ages. Where we were as a country, maybe 30 years ago, I'm not sure, but thereabout, about maybe 25 or so, thereabout. After that attempted coup of President Moi in 1982, things changed, and things became very, very difficult, and our political dynamics were changed forever, and Moi changed for the worst. I think that's where Uganda is, where we were as a country over 30 years ago. So that's very sad to see what's happening there in Uganda. And let me also look at quickly before I leave. The story from South Sudan. We know, and we talked to you about the meeting that was happening between a government official that was sent by President Salva Kiir and with opposition leaders. And it was happening in Naivasha here in Kenya. Kenya has been paramount when it comes to the peace process in South Sudan, and I'm sure South Sudanese across the world appreciate the role that Kenya has played as a big brother there in South Sudan, mediating the peace process, mediating through the independence of the country. Unfortunately, 2 years after its independence, South Sudan got its independence in 2011. 2 years later, before it had even started putting up the structures of the new country, a war broke out between the top leadership there in South Sudan and South Sudanese, who had celebrated having a new country, who were thrilled to have their own space where there was not going to be any more oppression, where they could freely live and feel part of the bigger picture of a country. It celebrated their independence. We were thrilled back here in Kenya, as you all know. We are interested in the peace. We've been part and parcel there of the peace process and the independence of the country of South Sudan. 2 years just after the independence, South Sudan was plunged into war, and as I said there, the lives of South Sudanese as they knew it or they hoped they would have, and the country has never been the same again. So the opposition leaders were meeting, some of them were meeting here in Naivasha, Pagan Amum and Paul Walong. I'm not sure why Thomas Cirillo, he's very key he's a key stakeholder in this peace process. So I'm not sure, because he's the head of this opposition alliance. And so I'm surprised that he was not there in this meeting. I don't know why, because I think his presence there would have been very paramount. Remember, after that revitalized peace agreement, again was resigned in last year, February, after having missed about 3 deadlines, and so they were forced to do it. The international community, the regional bodies put maximum pressure on South Sudan, and they said, you know what, you have to put an ink on the dotted lines of this paper, otherwise we are tired of you people, because you cannot keep taking people into circles over things that are quite very selfish. As we all know, the leadership of South Sudan there are really selfish. Whatever decision they make or things sometimes they argue about has nothing to do with the people of South Sudan, And so they had to do it last year after quite a long time, of keep pushing the deadlines. The revitalized peace agreement was signed in 2018. All right. So Thomas Cirillo, the leader of this opposition alliance, did not sign on those dotted lines even in 2018 and last year too, and there were concerns. And President Salva Kiir expressed his willingness to reach out even to these holdout opposition camps. But I don't know, that has not really happened there. So he was not present. So after the signing last year in February, the statement that he issued, he said, this is not it. And I think I mentioned it yesterday while talking about the same story. He really poured a lot of water on the whole process, and he said that was not the way South Sudan was going to attain peace. So I was just hoping that he would be present in this meeting that just concluded here in Kenya, so that he can actively participate. Sometimes when you send emissaries, they're not able to convey exactly what. When you're there, it makes all the difference, and it shows the commitment that you have, to find peace in your country. So the fact that you're not there, I don't know why you're not there, Thomas Cirillo, General. I don't understand. I've not read your name. I've not seen that you're part of the meeting, and yet you're very crucial to these peace talks. You were supposed to go there. You were supposed to show up, on behalf of your country. You owe your country that. You owe the peace process that. You owe the people of Sudan that. Of South Sudan. You should have showed up. Your presence would have meant something, and at least a commitment to finding a lasting peace there in South Sudan. So I think as much as the alliance of the opposition was well represented, but the fact that Cirillo did not show up, I don't know, whatever it is that they discuss there will hold. But Mr. Pagan Amom, who leads the real SPLM, told the conference that his intentions were to find lasting solutions to the underlying problems hindering political and economic stability in South Sudan. This is what he's quoted to have said: "It's time for us to rebuild our broken lives. We cannot continue causing problems to ourselves and to the region and expect our region to spend all time and resources trying to solve our problems." First of all, we're exhausted. We don't have any more time, and we don't have any more resources. Listen, the region is tired. You have to understand that, because I think East African community, I think IGAD, I think AU, not sure, but I'm just saying, we've given all we can to support the peace process in South Sudan. So yes, you're very right, Mr. Amum, that our patience is running out. So you have to get your house in order there in South Sudan. So I think the first, the first step of finding a solution is to come to a realization that we do have a problem and to see the facts as they are. So I'm glad that Mr. Moom is able to see that. And for his part, the chairperson of the South Sudan United Front, Paul Malong, expressed optimism in the progress being made in the peace talks. He said, I'm confident that we can successfully achieve the agenda at the end and set promise agenda for the continuation of a political dialogue. The talks between the government and the holdout opposition group started in 2019, and in January 2020, both sides signed a peace declaration in which they recommitted to the cessation of hostilities and called for uninterrupted humanitarian access to the local and international organizations. The talks, facilitated by Rome-based St. Egidio community, are aimed at supporting an inclusive peace agreement in South Sudan by persuading the holdout group to join the revitalized peace deal that was signed in September 2018. The group also includes the South Sudan National Salvation Front, headed by General Thomas Cirillo, who is a key member of that group. Matter of fact, he's the leader of that group. So the reason why he did not attend those talks, I do not understand. ADS and SSPDF, including forces of the SPLA-IO, have often clashed in several areas within the central Equatoria state. The head of the government delegation, Dr. Barnaba Marial, stated that the cessation of hostilities deal remains an essential part of facilitating genuine dialogue among the parties. During the Naivasha talks, the parties signed a declaration of recommitment to the cessation of the hostilities agreement. They also signed a recommitment to the Rome Declaration and Rome Resolution. They resigned. They've kept resigning and recommitting. I don't know if they mean it this time. I hope they do, for the sake of the country, for the sake of the women in those refugees camps, for the sake of the children of South Sudan who are hoping for a day where they will come home and start rebuilding their lives and start, walking proud, saying, I'm a South Sudanese, for the sake of the future of that country. I do hope. That is my hope, that they can live to the spirit of that meeting they had here in Kenya, because now they're recommitting, they're resigning, they're they've done that before. They've made commitments before which they've never bothered to respect. They've given their word before which they've never bothered to honor. So I just hope that this will not be another meeting where people just went to have per diems and allowances and stuff, and not really care about really following through with the content and the reasons as to why that meeting was made very possible. And as we've seen there has been a recent increase in communal violence and conflicts in South Sudan. This is because a lot of the army that were being trained and unified together, they have not graduated. That was supposed to happen last year. Almost a year now, they're still in those camps because there's no money to deploy them. There's no money to enable them go on and be employed and serve as a united army of South Sudan. It's a lot of problems there in South Sudan. So that has posed another security threat, because some army officials, or wherever the camps that they are, they're known as containment sites. So they're put in different containment sites. The situations in these sites are very deplorable from the reports that we've been receiving. And so a lot of the army officials there, sometimes they go days without food and water and all that. So they decide, you know what, why do I need to be here? Why do I have to sacrifice my life for the sake of people who don't even care? That will be the leadership. I'm assuming that's how they think. So they decide enough is enough. They go back to their communities. And when they go back to their communities, they live with the guns, they live with the bullets. They're not able to be accounted for. So when they go back to the villages, they end up forming militias and other groups there that really has contributed to the increased insecurity in South Sudan. South Sudan is really rather very complicated, so we cannot exhaust what is happening there. But I think that was a nice gesture, even for President Salva Kiir to send an official from his party to go and be part of this and mediate these talks and facilitate these talks. I think it was important. It shows a commitment on his part, but I hope that it does not end there. They see the whole of this peace process through, and some of those vital agendas that were captured and the issues that were captured in the revitalized peace agreement of 2018. I hope that 2021 is still early. We're still in the first quarter of the year. They go back and strategize. I know COVID-19 last year messed up a bit, and they're using that as an excuse. But I hope that they can be able to go and prioritize the peace process there in South Sudan and prioritize the issues and strategize on how they can implement some of those things that are important and that will put South Sudan on a path to eternal peace. Is it? On a path to peace. All right, I think that is what is important for the people of South Sudan. Thank you so much for watching. Surul Ifor, you're saying Paga Amum and Paul Malong have deals with the government. These two leaders have different agendas from Soma. They have been secretly meeting the government for a very long time behind the scenes. So that is why you think Cyril, I know I'm stressing myself too much about these two leaders. So that is why you think General Thomas Rilo did not come to that meeting, because I feel as though he's very important. He's a very important stakeholder in this peace process. So he did not show up, but these two showed up. And you're telling me now it's because these two are closer to the government. Okay, makes a lot of sense then. All right, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you later. My name is Miriam Ogoto. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.